Hi everyone.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, karibu.
Thank you. Should we start?
Yeah, just go right
Okay.
ahead.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Welcome to the talk on masculinity and mental health, brought to you by Standing Committee on Mental Health in partnership with the Standing Committee of Medical Education and Research, that's under MSAKE. The talk will focus on the influence of masculine norms on mental health and the redefinition of manhood in the 21st century. So thank you everyone for joining us. You can tell me how you're feeling through your emojis in your chats, please. So let me know you're here. Wow, you all look so happy. Hey, James. Hi.
All right.
Right.
Hi, everyone. A lovely evening to you all. Today, as Kinjal mentioned, we're going to be talking about masculinity and mental health. Now, gracing this session is our guest speaker of the day, who goes by the name Mr. Onyango Otieno, aka Mr. Rixpoet himself. Now, he's the co-founder of Fatuma's Voice and also the founder of Siri. And last but not least, he's the host and the executive producer of Afroman Pod. Please, guys, please do follow this guy on Twitter. You will get some really insightful values from him. And I would like to welcome him. Mr. Rixpoet, the floor is all yours.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yay. We
Yes.
can hear you.
All right. Thank you so much for that befitting introduction, Mr. James. I really, you make me feel like a very big, important person. Just a dude.
But you are.
Of course, you're a big deal.
I'm a deal. Big deal, I don't know. Anyway, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you guys, everybody who, wait, there are 30 people here. Well, all of the 30 of you who are here following, thank you so much for joining. For those who didn't get it right, my name is Onyango Otieno, also known as Rixpoet. I'm a poet. I'm a mental health advocate. I also talk a lot about trauma healing, and I am a podcaster. I operate a podcast called Afro Masculinity Podcast. I am so passionate to talk about African masculinity because I grew up as a firstborn in a very violent home, and my parents fought a lot for so many years. And being a firstborn guy, having to witness all this, being that a lot of violence was also meted upon me, especially with my dad. It's been a long walk to freedom, like Nelson Mandela would have put it. And I experienced large bouts of depression and suicide ideation as well, ever since I was 16 years old. In fact, the period from around 16 to 29 were my hardest because a lot of the trauma came back. It was until 2017, from late 2016 to early 2017, when my suicide ideation came back and I got depressed again. And I remember I didn't have a job, and I was getting off a toxic relationship, and I had lost two male friends of mine who had also hanged themselves. And it was a difficult, very difficult time for me. So I remember coming home and taking a 2 hour long shower, just asking myself, what am I gonna do to myself if I get out, when I get out of this room? So for the longest time, again, writing was my outlet, and I remember pushing myself to get out of the bathroom with my cold. My body was wet, and I opened my laptop and I wrote something on Facebook, 18th January 2017, that I have suicide ideation, and I think I'm having depression right now. And it was a long story in there. So many people, of course, got back to me and sent their messages of encouragement and pushed me to go forward and everything. I have a very close knit bunch of guy friends who we've known each other for like the last, I don't know, 10 years, and we've been growing together. So these are the people who they came to my house, they'd wash my house, they'd cook for me, they'd open up the curtains when the only thing I could do was just spread my bed or just do nothing the whole day. So during this period, after so many people would get back to me saying, I do relate with what you're talking about, what you wrote in there is something I'm going through right now, and I don't know how to navigate through it. I wondered, how possible is it that so many of us are witnessing, experiencing this thing, but I don't see anybody who's talking about it. Now, 2017, 3 years back, we didn't have mental health conversations like what we are having in Kenya right now or today. Information was extremely scanty. So I thought to myself, there has to be something going on here that, could offer us some kind of solutions that could help us understand. And also I thought to myself, if I don't figure what this thing is, it may just take me out next time it comes back. So that's when I got online. I remember really just typing suicide thoughts and it gave me all those ideas. And, that's when I met mental health. I learned about all these things. So the hardest part was it in the beginning, I could only find white people's stories online about this thing. I couldn't get African stories. And I said, how come, like this, I want to talk about this. So it meant for me that, as a writer, as somebody who also previously had been talking so much about his personal life, this was a huge and very critical addition to the chronicles I write in my platforms about life, about growing up, about existence. So it took a very interesting turn, and I'd tell my stories, I'd share my healing journey, and this also exposed me to coming to work with psychiatrists, with therapists, with psychologists, like people like you, people like this is the last thing I ever thought I'd be doing with my life right now. And it's just been interesting because I think I've just been very, very curious to understand my mind. At that time when I was 29, I thought, I felt like I was lied to. The fact that I was, by that time, 28 years old, and nobody had ever told me the importance of taking care of my mind. Nobody in my life had ever said, you know what, you need to take care of your mind. Nobody. Not my teachers in all those years of going to school, not my parents in all those years of living with them, not my friends. I mean, they didn't know much about it. So I felt there is a huge gap of in the education sector where we are taught things that don't really help us in real life to really grow as human beings. We are taught things that help us to grow as robots. And I have a huge problem with that, So because I'm a bit of a feisty man. I am curious. I write. I'm open about things. I'm open about sex. I'm open about my body. I'm open about my mind. I share what I think. And where I come from is, for the longest time, my voice was stifled as a young boy, and I kept trying to break through. So when I was 16, that's when I started writing poetry. And in the beginning, I was just writing to get the steam off my body. And the more people read my work, the more it was relatable to them. So it even stopped just being a matter of me writing for myself. Like, it was now actually reaching so many people in the quarters and in the circles I was in. So with time, I also learned the importance of me speaking my truth, because when I speak my truth, it also pushes someone to speak their truth. And, you know, in the mental health conversation now, that could help another man, another guy, another child, another lady, another woman, another girl to gain courage to face themselves, to figure out what's really going on with themselves, to face another day when they thought, man, this is the last day on earth, I'm going to kill myself. I get so many messages of people who have written suicide notes, and they met a post I did like 2 hours before they took pills, before they did something bad to themselves. And I'm thankful that over time I have taught myself how to communicate words in such a way that it talks to people in a special way. So yeah, that was like my introduction to who I am and what I do, and why I do what I do. Yeah, so I met Gloria, and I don't know what you guys call her, but we decided, you know, let's have this conversation. And she reached out, and I was like, yeah, I mean, every day of my life, I talk about men. One of those reasons is because I grew up, my paternal grandpa was polygamous. He married 3 wives, and he gave birth to 30 children. So it was a humongous village. My father is the firstborn of the last house, the 3rd wife. And I mean, we grew up, I have so many cousins, some whose names I don't even know. But the other thing I witnessed a lot in that village is the way women were treated. And I kept asking myself as a young boy, why is it that all the time I see my aunties crying, but I've never seen my uncle's tears? You know, like, as a young kid, I just kept asking myself that question, and women around me looked so sad. And yet I was such a happy kid. And, you know, before all this violence at home came and sort of just shut me down, I was such a happy kid. So the more I grew up, the more I got curious to understand what's really going on. One day in 2015, my parents were from another nasty fight, and this time I made an attempt to actually speak to them. And you know, as you all know, like, that is like a suicidal thing for a child to call their parents to talk about their own marriage. So I spoke to Mom Kando, and she's usually like, we talked really much. But now when I went to talk to my father, after all those things we talked about, there's one thing he said that just ticked me off. And I remember him saying that he doesn't come to me with his problems, because when he does that, I will think that he's weak. Whoa. And I remember just something clicking in my mind, thinking, wow, what pain must a man be for him to think that he can't come and talk to his own son about his own pain? Like, his imagination of a father was this perfect human being who does not exist anywhere on this planet, you know, because me growing up, really, I just wanted a dad, a friend. You know, when I was younger, he used to do, I'm sorry, I tell a lot of stories. He used to do this thing. He'd put me on a table, and I don't know how many of you would remember, but the way we have LG and Samsung these days, so those days we had this thing, a brand called Sanyo. So Sanyo was like a big electronics brand that time. So my dad had a Sanyo radio, which was a big deal. So he'd put me on a table and put on music on the radio and tell me to dance. And I remember I used to look forward to those times because it meant I'm bonding with him. And I grew up dancing on tables, quite literally. And we used to watch music with him even up to when I was around 10, 11 years old. But now the more I was growing and the more he was getting angry, we started separating, and now that bond just started going and fading and fading and fading. So when he told me about this situation, that he can't come to me with his problems because I'll think he's weak, I imagined how much misinformation he must have had growing up as a man, as a boy, that a man is supposed to be in a certain way, a man is supposed to behave in a certain way. And that made me curious because myself, I also wanted to heal badly. I badly wanted to heal, but it also meant I had to understand my father for me to get through, to get to understand myself, because he was the point of much of my pain. So starting to go back, I start talking to my uncles here and there, just listening to stories. And something funny about life, the moment you set yourself out to look for something, answers sort of just start opening up to you. So I remember, my dad had told me that grandpa fought in the Second World War. And now I could hear stories from my uncles that he was like, grandpa was really violent, especially when he came back from the war. Like, he'd hurl things at people, he would do all these kind of violent things, and I witnessed him like beat up his wives in front of everybody else. And my father and his brothers grew up with a very skewed idea of what leadership is and what a man is supposed to be, because I mean, by every sense, our societies were hugely patriarchal, even before colonialism. And I mean, the father is, by many instances, even today, from how people perceive it, as the head of the house. So you can imagine, if the head of the house is not okay and he's again the main breadwinner, everything suffers, everything slows down. And in search of understanding and getting to know myself, I learn about anxiety, I learn about post-traumatic stress. And my grandpa had all the symptoms of PTSD. He had everything. And in fact, what killed him is he over-relied on alcohol, and even as old as he was, he had a strong body, yes, but I think the trauma had even overtaken him over all those years, because many African soldiers after the Second World War in Burma came, they were just bundled back home, and most of them, even when you go back, if you read those stories from people, they were never really okay. Some used to talk to themselves. Some used to imagine their guns in their house and they're in war and everything. Some used to take cover in their own beds, like it's crazy. So yeah, grandpa was like that. And unfortunately, he gave birth to so many kids and traumatized a lot of them. And my father picked that a lot. So he just brought, there's something called transgenerational trauma, like trauma that is just passed to another generation. So that's what he took and he brought home. And that trauma is what caught me. And I was supposed to pass it on to my children the day I was going to get some. So I think for me, it was the curiosity to say, this pain does come from somewhere and I want to understand it. And the more I kept pushing, the more I kept understanding, the more I kept reading, the more things just opened up. And then later in 2019, I got a fellowship to go to Canada to do a mental health leadership kind of fellowship. And, I went to visit the mental health hospitals and meet up with artists. Then I came back to Kenya and I went through a trauma healing course that an organization I've been working with called Green String Network were offering. And I got to understand a lot, especially about the brain and what happens to a traumatized brain and that affects those behaviors. And, I got to understand that the complexity of the brain is really just what drives us to be who we become. So Gloria had sent me, like you guys had some form with questions, and basically people are just asking, who is the man, and how does a man's mental health affect his behavior and his surrounding and all those things. And some of your questions are really serious, and I don't have all the answers. But among them, like I could peruse through. Somebody asked how to accept the results when when a female achieves more than them. Yeah. Like so many people are not happy that girls could be ahead of them. Understanding masculinity in the 21st century, how to overcome toxic masculinity, why men can't remain faithful and chaste in their marriages, why most men resort to violence on their girlfriends and fiancés or wives, even at the slightest provocation, what being a man, what being a man means, demystifying toxic masculinity, how to interact with men who suffer from superiority complex so as to bring out one's ideas. Well, that's a big one. What I think about gender roles, yeah, men and mental health. So I tell, gosh, this box is not giving me any peace. I tell a lot of, I answer a lot of my questions in stories, So my mom made sure that I grew up not thinking as if I'm a guy, so I had all these male privileges and men are supposed to act like this. But my dad, that's what he wanted. He wanted me to be closer to him. He didn't want me to be closer to my mom. My mother would say, you know what, you have to spread your bed when you're waking up in the morning. You have to wash utensils. You have to know how to cook. She taught me all those things. And, there's this thing about a lot of guys today, like, you hear guys say they're looking for a girl or a wife to get a wife so that this wife could do home duties for them, cook for them, wash their, clothes and all these things. To me, it's like it is so alien because I was taught to take care of myself. So for the longest part, actually, the things my mother taught me is what I brought to the world. So it was really confusing coming out. And, when you're around boys and you're talking things that are totally different from what they're saying. And there's so many things men are taught to be that hurt them a lot, even as they get older, because I remember me growing up and watching all this violence happening around me in the house. There was nobody I could ever emulate or understand what manhood meant apart from my father. And yet there were so many other voices that were coming from other people. I mean, your male teachers are there. There was all these soap operas and movies. I mean, we grew up with Chuck Norris, man. We grew up with Jet Li. We grew up with, what was this, Jet Li, like all these guys, like movie stars, Kina Rambo, like those macho guys, hardcore people, wrestling when it was still WWF, yani those days. So for a lot of us guys, like to be a man, you had to toughen up. You had to toughen up from a very young age. Otherwise, you wouldn't survive anywhere. But what I came to understand is boys are toughened because their bodies are going to be used in the future as tools of production. And that is why the narrative of a man being the provider, a man being the breadwinner still stands today, because there is this idea in the world of capitalism that we need to produce, who are good producers. Actually, we need machinery, we need buildings to be made, we need cities, we need, you know. So men are poor men are set out there to work, to harden, their bodies are hardened for difficult work so that they can be tools of production for richer men. But when these men are tired, when they come back home, they're expecting women to soften things up for them because they are from a very hard life out there. And yet women also are going through their own hardships, which men don't see, because most times men are out there trying to build the world. And I figured that one of the reasons it's been difficult for men to open up, to be a bit open with their emotions, is the fact that from a very young age, you're actually taught to exist outside the home. Boys are not taught to exist inside the home. You're taught to be good and strong for the outside world, to be technical, to solve difficult things outside and everything, which is a good thing, and everybody needs to learn that. But we are not taught as boys how to exist in the home, how to exist inside your own body. And home here is both literal and metaphoric, in that in your own mind, in your own body, your home, the home that is who you are, and the home of the people, the surroundings you exist within. So because in the outside world, you do not necessarily need emotional intelligence, you just need your IQ mostly. Our EQs then suffer in that sense, and we find it hard to relate with being close, too much close. So we have left that work for women. And yet the human being is a lot of emotional work, you know? Your emotions are at the center of your humanity, at the center of your existence. And that's why women are at the, in fact, you know, the World WHO says that women actually attempt suicide more. Women are actually more depressed than men on a global scale. Why? Because of the difficult hardships women go through on earth, from gender pay gap to sexual abuse to religious abuse, to all this alienation and separation. Like, for example, in Kenya today, women only own 1% of land in the whole damn country. You wouldn't believe it. Again, because inheritance laws that are from our communities would say only a man is supposed to inherit land. So, you know, these are huge realities. But as a guy, I mean, you grew up with so much male privilege, you don't think of these things fast, you know. So because we are so used to our privilege, we are so used to things going our way, when anybody in form of a woman who we are taught that is supposed to be below us comes and sort of just wants to challenge our thinking, our what we call our authority and all these things, we want to feel like, no, this person is actually attacking my own existence. They're attacking my own space. And most times it isn't true. So what do we do? When you feel threatened, you want to protect that which protects you. And for us, a lot of guys, our own identity is in closeness. Like, we've closed ourselves and we say, that is who a man is. A man is not supposed to be emotional. We've closed ourselves like that. What in turn does it do to us? Because your brain is for a human being, you have energy that needs to get out, and you do not have any healthy coping mechanisms. You're gonna have to start drinking. You drink a lot. You're gonna get into drugs. You're gonna get into sexual addiction. If you look at this world today, like, we sexualize women like they're just things to be seen, things to be used, you know. So sex is that thing like we use as to get out of our energy. The porn industry on a global scale, if you looked at it, I mean, it goes without saying. Consumers, men are out there, like we want to get the energy out. We do not have the tools to express ourselves in a healthy way, and you know, that hinders our mental health. So what I have learned over time, for the longest time, it's a lot of us guys, we struggle between maintaining the old idea of what we were taught a man is supposed to be and the direction the new man awaiting us ahead wants us to go. We are scared of getting to that new man. We are scared of leaving that which we know are our roots, or we perceive to be our roots, where a man is supposed to be hard, a man is supposed to protect, a man is supposed to be, you know, all that. To be a provider, to know everything. You want to be the priest of the house, the head of the house. You want to, you know, all those things. But in real sense, you're a human being. You are a human being who takes the masculine form. You are not born a leader, guys. Like, you weren't born a leader. It was something taken upon you. And I would imagine for many men, when you're growing, the moment you're born, there is a story that has already been written for you. And so as it is for women as well. For the guy, it's, you know, now that you're a man, you have a penis, you're supposed to grow up to be the head of the house, supposed to grow up to protect your community, supposed to grow up to be a father, supposed to grow up to know everything. Like, a man is supposed to know everything because you offer direction. So you even fear making mistakes. And all these pressures for me are just very unnecessary, you know, because everybody has their own intelligence, and everybody's intelligence is important to the health of a community, the health of a country, the health of a nation, the health of a continent, the health of the world. We can't say, you guys, because you look like this, then your space is here. You guys, because you look like this, then your space is here. We do have hormonal differences as men and women, or non-binary people. But saying that, you know, being a man means this is the only thing I can be from start to end, it's not true. It's not true at all. So in my line of work, I work through all those gender biases, and because for the longest time, we have so much information about who women are, what women are doing. We have very minimal information about who men are. What teaches the man to be who he is? What are those myths that we grow up to understand, and we peg our masculinity on those things? What have we been lied to about who we are supposed to be? You know, what if I do not want to be the head of the house? So what? You know, what if I don't want to be the sole provider? There are men who just want to take care of kids, and wives are the ones working. Can such families flourish? You know, must you live according to what society shapes you to become? Are you happy with that kind of arrangement? And I thought to myself, the more women are free, the more men can be free as well. But it's difficult for women to be free if men aren't free because of the state of the world. On a global scale, men are still the people who manage resources. Resources that say, this is the food we are going to eat here tonight. Resources that say, I'm going to be the one paying the school fees. Resources that say, you know, I'll choose the kind of clothes you wear. Resources that say you're going to be secure or insecure as per what I want. Resources that say we are going to marry you off at 16, at 17, at 18. And FGM is our cultural practice. You have to do this to be a full woman in our community. Resources that say all the bride price comes to me, you know, and it's absurd, man. And I think of these things, it's really absurd. So my biggest call to guys, let us stop imagining that what we see around us, that we perceive or understand to be what manhood is supposed to be, is the truth. Let us question. There's nothing as dangerous as living an unexamined life. Question why you are the way you are. Question why you think women are supposed to be this or supposed to be that. Question why you think men are supposed to be this or supposed to be that. Question your religion. Question your faith. Question your political biases. Question. Because it's through questioning that you really get to know. And you wade through like a wave of uncertainties and a lot of things. It is also true that you won't live this life knowing everything, possibly, but it is also true you can live this life bettering yourself. You can live this life bettering yourself. And the fact that, for example, I'm 32 years old, I'm not married, I don't have kids. So many people around me, a lot of guys around me are panicking. Yo, I'm 30, I'm 31, I don't have this, I don't have that. Hey, sijui nini, and they're so bogged up, stressed about things they wouldn't get right because society looks at you as a guy. You're supposed to have it all together. You're supposed to know what you're supposed to be doing with your life all the fucking time, like you're supposed to always be going in the right direction. So you have very minimal space for failure. You have very minimal space for mistakes. And you know what? I spent all my 20s making mistakes. I have not stopped making mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. But what I say is I have to be learning more than I am making mistakes. If I could do that, just learn more to do better, and I realized one of those things about growing up in a world that hates women, in a world that also rich men hate poor men. A poor man and a poor woman is hated anywhere in the world, but most times a woman is just hated because she's a woman. If you're a guy, people love you so much when you're rich. When you're poor, people hate you if you're a guy. So a lot of these things go back to classism, social class, political class, religious class, and they're very historical things, which all these conversations about tribalism and the bourgeois and political class and the voters and middle class, all these things, it's all about classism. It's all about where you come from, that somebody wants to judge you from that. We have to break these walls. We have to break these chains that make us feel like a man belongs to a certain place, a woman belongs to a certain place, a child belongs to a certain place. We belong to each other. That's just it. We belong to each other. And so the more you question and open yourself up to, learning, the more you have an opportunity to understand what's happening within you and without you and around you, And for me, the other day I made a post on Twitter and Facebook as well, like, guys, we need to normalize buying sanitary pads for our partners. And of course, I mean, the obvious thing is there was a lot of backlash around that. And I'm like, I mean, these are just supposed to be necessary basic things, like go to the shop. If your partner is going through her menses, I mean, just buy the things, man. Just come home with them, like you're taking care of your peoples, Like there's so many things that we were made to hate and fear for nothing. It's not like my hands will burn if I carry a Cortex pad or a Nia pad on my hands. There's nothing is it gonna make me different? Is it gonna cut my penis off? Nothing. They're just crazy fears that do not even help anybody with anything, Is it gonna make you less of a man if you are dating somebody who earns more than you? No, it's just that you are taught that a man is supposed to be a provider, so you're supposed to be ahead of the woman all the time. Is that even healthy for anybody? Does it always mean that all men everywhere on earth for all time will always have that arrangement? No. Is it even realistic? It isn't. So my call is like, dudes, like, yo, man, let's just start getting real. One of the things that I'm speaking for 2 more minutes and then I start answering the question. Um, One of the things that have really helped me over the course of the last 10 years is my best friends are men. And we are, all of us, when we were meeting, we all had daddy issues. Most times when we talk about daddy issues, we just refer it like it's girls who have daddy issues. So many of us boys have daddy issues, and we know it. We are not close to our fathers because we fear our fathers. Our fathers abused us. Our fathers look at us like we are just nothing, like we are just supposed to be there to please them. So we work so hard to please them until we lose ourselves. And when we were younger, like with my boys, we had all these daddy issues, and we came together. First, in the beginning, it was a Bible study, and it was my first time to feel safe talking about pain I'd gone through with men who look like people who look like me, and I wasn't being judged for talking. And that was like, whoa, that was so freeing. And we developed those bonds to demystify our own masculinities, which helped me a great deal. So having people around me all these years who make me the big deal you say I am, they're the people who've really taken me through all this. I didn't make it on my own. I always had people. To date, I still have them. And we have each other. And there, when I'm with them, I am not this Rix, these celebrities, Rixpoet. I'm just a man. I'm just a young boy who's growing, who's learning, who is existing with other men around him. That's what I love most about humanity. Because when I'm with them, I do not have to perform. A lot of us guys, when we're out here, our masculinity is very performative. We have to pretend to be strong so that people don't think we are weak. We have to pretend to be okay, even when we are dying inside. We have to pretend so much. And you know what? I do not want to live all my life performing, man. You can't do that. Just life inside you is looking to be lived. The boy inside you wants to be free. That's how you free your mind. That's how we are going to reduce all these suicide cases that more men are killing themselves. We have to just say, I do not know how to do this. Just say you don't know. One of the hardest things I remember even growing up, I still suffer a bit of it, is asking for directions. Like, why ask for directions? You want to suffer until until you die, man, and some of these things, it's like, you're a human being, you need help like everybody else, People will see you the way they will see you. People see me the way they see me. I think I'm beyond fearing what people will think about me. And I'm like, I want to see better men on this earth. Then that will bring a better world. There is no development that will happen anywhere if, one, we leave women behind, and if, two, men do not improve themselves. No development. Forget about employment increasing, forget about economies growing, forget about any kind of development. Forget them if, one, women are left behind, and if, two, men do not work to improve themselves. Forget all manner of development. Cool. So let me see. Let me get to the questions. Oh my word. How can wait? Okay. Questions. How can we help victims of transgenerational trauma break off it? Cool. Thank you, Benjamin, for your question. That is a long. The answer is very long. It's not. There's no one literal or linear answer. But for me, everybody wants to feel safe. The best way for trauma to heal is safety. Safe relationships are the best thing. Like, how do we show up for each other? How do we help each other heal? By humanizing one another. My boys would allow me to talk about all the crazy things that were happening at home. I had space, and nobody has ever judged me for crying in that space. I'm in pain. Like, even today, I am allowed to cry because the pain is real. and you cannot ignore pain. So healthy relationships, safe relationships where people allow or give or hold space for one another. For me, communities, I really believe in communities. When we create communities, people have a better chance to heal. And I usually have this tag that I use. I say, when care is shared, then healing is a possibility. When care is shared, healing is a possibility. How can guys practice emotional self-care? I like being personal with how I share my answers on these things. For me, emotional self-care is learning to be who I'm supposed to be. I journal a lot. I do the things I enjoy. I dance. I write poems. I write, I read. I play FIFA with my boys. I take walks. I like talking to people. I like listening to people. Emotional self-care is also showing up for other people. We imagine self-care is always so personal and it is only individual. Self-care could be personal, but it's not necessarily that it has to be individual, because even the friends you choose are part of your self-care, because you actually are choosing people who will also take care of you. We don't think of it that way, so it is an all circular, all round kind of thing. From the friends you choose to the work of your life to what you do when you're alone. Just show up for yourself. Show up for yourself. In everyday life, women tend to lean towards the more manly man compared to the less manly man. Why is this? Cool. Thanks, Brian, for your question. Now, there's something called patriarchy. I don't know. You can look for that. Patriarchy is a social system where men are the ones who lead or control resources. Now, we have to agree or accept that in as much as men are growing in a patriarchal society, women are also growing in a patriarchal society. So even most times as a survival mechanism, because from a young age, a girl is taught to take care of the home. A girl is taught to become a future mother. A girl is taught to be a future wife. So from a very young understanding, he is taught to seek refuge, not in her own self, but in the security of a man who's also working too hard to create that very same security, both for himself and his wife or the women around him. So women are also taught to believe that to be secure, you have to be around a man. Then this man has to take particular attributes. They have to be in a certain way for them to feel secure. So we have so many women who also believe a man is supposed to be in a certain way, because that was the way they were socialized. So that is where they also come from. And it is the same thing men are taught. So women also believe it because they grow up in the same society, the same community. And it is just as harmful as it comes from a man as it comes from a woman. Is it true that women have more powers than men? I don't know, man. I don't know. I would say in 1832, mark this, there's a poet called Samuel Taylor. He said, a great mind must be androgynous. Now, androgynous means has attributes, both female and male attributes. A great mind must be androgynous. So all of us have masculine energy. All of us have feminine energy. It's just different in people. All of us are powerful. No person is more powerful than the other. Every individual is a ball of energy. You're made of energy, and energy is power. So as an individual, you only take your form. You're just a man because that is the masculine form, XY chromosome. That's the only difference you have. Otherwise, your spirit and a woman's spirit is not different. It's a spirit. The energy in your mind is not different from the energy in a man's mind. It's in the woman's mind. It's not different. You know, the hormones vary, but the mind energy is the same. This energy of your spirit is the same. You don't touch it and say, this is the spirit of a man, this is the spirit of a woman. Those things don't exist, you know? So, yeah. How do we approach issues of vulnerability and emotional availability with men? Thank you, Benjamin. Good question. I mean, I know it's difficult for us guys to accept that we are not strong, that we are weak, that sometimes we don't have the answers. But you know what? The only way we are going to break this is to go against what society teaches us to be. You're going to have to start being vulnerable with yourself to say, this is my truth. Do you know what? Where I am right now, I am stressed. Where I am right now, I'm depressed. Where I am right now, I don't have the answers. Vulnerability has to start with you. We can't wait to another person or another person. For me, even with my boys, it is through me being vulnerable with myself that other boys start feeling safe to be vulnerable with themselves. So you are the answer. It's you. People might find it weird in the beginning because we are not used to this kind of thing every day. But you know what? I have men who come to my inbox and they talk and talk and talk. And I realize most times, even, you know, the fact that women as well also grow up, you know, sometimes, you know, are stepping onto these patriarchal ideas that a man is supposed to do this, a man is not supposed to do this. So many men are afraid. We are afraid of opening ourselves outside there because men and women will judge us. So we are constantly looking for places to hide, to go there and talk our truth. You know, so I mean, that's why people cheat. That's why people do all manner of things. And I'm saying, you have to be vulnerable with yourself in your space, in your bed, in your bedroom, in your living room, with yourself, in your mind and in your heart. Yes. What role does the lady play in the man's mental health? Not necessarily her partner, but all the men she relates with. Women have very strong feminine energy. Now, feminine energy is perceived to be soft and calm and welcoming and everything. But I won't even make this thing sound scientific. My simple answer is just to listen. And it is the same answer I would tell men. Listen, just listen. Let us create safe spaces for each other. Just listen. Listen to people around you. Listen to what they're saying. Listen without judgment. Just listen. You will be surprised by the things you will discover by talking less and listening more. Just listen. Listen to the body language. Listen to people's tension. Listen to the words people don't say when they talk to you. Listen to their intonations. Just listen. Watch their eyes. Are they safe? Are they terrified? What are all those things? But it's difficult for you to do that to another person if you don't do it to yourself. So you have to start by listening to yourself, listening to who you are. And the harder part is women are taught to take care of men. So it's like, because majority of women are caregivers, they barely have time for themselves. You end up running out of energy. So what do? You know, and women are strong mostly because they have a lot of networks and they talk. Women talk all the damn time. Guys barely do that, you know. So listen, just listen. Yeah. Yeah. What will we, hey, this is maswali ni ngapi by the way? What? Did I answer all of them? Let's see. What will we describe as positive masculinity and what is toxic masculinity and where do we draw the line? Actually, you know, I wouldn't even think of it along lines. I don't want us to think of it like, because when you start putting lines, then it means there is something that is only good up to a certain point and only bad up to a certain point. Then when you figure that line and you peter it, then now, hey, this is toxic. No. Human beings are complex. We are very complex things. And if you believe that because you're a man, a woman can't tell you anything, question that. If you believe just because you're a man, a woman can belong to you, question that. If you believe that you must be the provider of your house because you're the man of the house, question that. If you believe that a woman cannot or should not or must not earn more than you, question that. Anything that takes the form of suppressing another human being, question it. Because we also don't talk about how men also suppress their fellow men. Because of the classism, a poor man fears a rich man. A rich man despises a poor man. And it's so easy to see it everywhere. Even in school, amongst yourselves, there is a way you see each other. There is a way you treat another guy because you think he's poor, because you think he's less privileged, because you think you know so much than any other person. All that. Why don't we meet the world as if we are empty? Like you know nothing. Just when you get out of your house, just come out as if you know nothing. So when somebody tells you something, listen, take it in, ask questions, nini. Don't judge, just listen. We are complex. Yeah. Are there platforms or institutions that help men to connect with their vulnerability? Also, most gender discrimination and gender-based violence platforms are usually focused on women. That's very true. It's a huge challenge I'm facing myself as well, but let me tell you this. We don't have to wait for platforms. We don't have to wait for institutions. Women didn't wait for platforms. Women didn't wait for institutions. Women organized amongst themselves. Hizi machama walisema we shall meet. They said they were going to be meeting together because we understand each other's trouble. Men have to start doing that with your friends, your boyfriends. Meet up. When you're meeting up, fine, go watch football, make noise. If you're drinking whatever thing, do whatever you're thinking you're doing for fun. But at the end of the day, tusikutane huko nje, tunakutana pamoja, tuko pamoja, tuna spend time, but hatuongei about our real struggles. Tunadanganyananga sana kama maboy. Like you're hanging with your boys, you're dying, but you're afraid even to open up because somebody's gonna laugh at you. Those are fake friendships. So how can we organize? We don't have to wait for institutions. How can 1, 2, 3, 4 boys start meeting in a week and saying we are going to be meeting every Friday, every Tuesday to just talk about our struggles, talk about life? Why can't that be a possibility? Because that is how you start institutions. We can't wait for people to come from where and teach us also now, this is how you're supposed to know. If you're looking for resources, text me, call me. How do we organize? How do we meet up? The other day I started a support group for men who have been raped and sexualized and sexually abused. And a couple of men reached out to me like, yeah, we want to be part of this. In truth, the thing is so many men are struggling. They're looking for these spaces. And for me, because I believe in communities, that's what I'm creating. I'm creating communities everywhere I'm going. So you can create communities as well. Healthy male communities where you humanize each other. Like, come here with what you have. But at the same time, you're also doing the work. You're questioning why you guys treat women the way you treat women, or your understanding of women and where those things come from. Talk to the women around you. Ask them how they feel you treat them. Let them be honest. Let them be safe. You will be surprised at the shit we've been to women around us, and we think we're just okay guys, So communities for me are the way forward. Communities should be the best, the first and the best institutions. Another problem cropping up or gaining or gaining is feminism that works to empower women and pushing men down. Jeremiah, thank you for bringing that point. Now, a lot of men are afraid about women being so strong. A lot of men are afraid of women putting men down. It's a necessary conversation. But where does it come from? I would love us to talk about that. Where does it come from? Why are women angry? Why are women angry? Certain angry women look like they are pushing men down. Why is it? It's because we've pushed them there. The men who came before us did it. They pushed those men. If you do not do bad things to men, if you do not do bad things to women, you do not have to be afraid of of being pushed down. You don't have to be afraid of that because you're not suppressing any other woman's voice. So what we have to do is we have to galvanize men. The other day, mmesikia kwa news, 4,000 girls have been impregnated. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Excuse me.
Yes.
A point of order, please. I've noted we have people all over Africa in this platform, in this meeting, like people from Nigeria. So I will advise if you stick to English to help them understand better.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, guys. We have to be honest about why we are where we are with what's happening around what people call gender wars. We do not have to be afraid of angry feminists if we are doing the right thing. You know, if we are not asking, why are you angry? Why are you putting men down? We are not asking. We're not asking what's happening to them. As a guy, when I step out of my house, I do not have to worry about a man catcalling me or a man touching my ass or my breasts or whatever. But that's a daily thing for women. It's a daily thing for women on top of the social pressures of, you're a woman, you're supposed to be like this. You know, we do have our struggles as guys. They exist. But a lot of our struggles actually come from other men. A lot of our struggles come from things that other men have caused, not things that women have caused. You know, and it's because for the longest time, women have actually been fighting for their own survival. I mean, for life for men is already difficult because they're trying to survive, making other men rich. As a guy, you barely work to get another woman rich. It's barely, because how many women are rich in this world? Very few. The rich women we know are attached to richer men, you know? So you do not have to be afraid about women putting men down. Be afraid of the work you've not done within yourself that should better who you are. Because when you do better, you're not afraid. When you do better, you're not afraid. Yeah. Why do some men go above and beyond to cheat on multiple women? Isn't it easier and just less mentally exhausting to be honest and real with one woman? Why the compulsive need to have a string of women in their lives? Now, the answer to that question is very complex. On one side, men are taught that we're supposed to own women. So there is this idea of, you know, the more I have, the stronger I am. There is the idea of being in a space where you have a problem in a relationship, you have a problem with your partner, but you do not want to say. So you sort of find somebody else who understands you at that time, and then you go there. So you put your attention there, assuming that your partner won't get you. And sometimes it could be your reality. Maybe your partner doesn't really understand you because maybe of their own situations. So you go on, but you see, it's not right. You know, we have to learn how to open up to each other. If you're meeting someone and both of you agree, you're gonna have a a monogamous relationship, be honest about it. If both of you agree you want to have an open relationship or polygamous or polyamorous relationship, where now it's the woman who has more men, agree, talk, just talk. Say, I'm not happy here anymore. Say what's going on. Say what you feel. And through the talking, that's when you know if you have expectations that are unrealistic towards the other person. So it's a lot of things from, us guys thinking we own women, us guys thinking we're supposed to always be looking, it's a complex answer that needs its own own day. Taking it to religion a bit, God gave us different roles about punishment, Garden of Eden. What's your opinion? Okay. So now that's if you're a Christian, that's your belief. We have so many religions on this earth. These things are very radical even when I share them, but I say anyway because you've asked me. For me, and even from the church history I have learned, funny thing about this is they don't teach you church history when you go to church. They teach you about Jesus. They don't teach us about where Jesus really came from and the whole history behind. Who said we're going to have six books in the Bible? Who said Genesis has to be the first book? How are the books of Moses written long after Moses died? All those things. They don't tell you about the process of canonization. For me, the story about gender roles from biblical perspectives are stories that were told to humanize people, to humanize human beings, to make us have an idea of where we came from. Because nearly every single community on this earth have an origin story. Your own community, they have a story about where they came from. My community has a story of where they came from. Everybody has their story. But one of the reasons why Christianity got to where it is because of politics. Back from 4th century. So that's a long story. We might have to talk on the side, but I do not believe in gender roles. I feel humans are very fluid. Like, we can use our strengths and intertwine and interchange and interconnect to hold each other together through our weaknesses. Sometimes I'm strong, sometimes you're strong, sometimes you're weak, sometimes I'm strong. Can I be there for you? Can you be there for me when I'm weak? I feel that's how we should be. When a woman, for example, is going through her menses, she's down there. How can I show up for her? Not expect her to still cook and do all these things, blah, blah, blah. When I'm going through some kind of emotional pain, I'd like for my partner to be there for me to support me emotionally. So, and even financially, when I'm not okay, I've had to face myself a lot to actually ask for money from lady friends. Because for me, even where I was coming from that's not something, even when I was dating, like that's not something I want to do. But I just, with time, learned, man, I don't have it. It's okay to ask, So gender roles from Bible times, that's a whole conversation. But for me, it's time to break these things off. As women, oh my God, you guys, how many questions? Oh, we're almost there. As women, we do realize men have lots of pressure and they rarely open up their emotions and their thoughts. How do you help such men? Should you give them time and let them talk on their own? What can you do to make men feel secure to talk about their problems? It is sad that women have had to do a lot of emotional labor for men since time immemorial. What I have seen work mostly is because of how men have been socialized or programmed to operate, they like their space. They like their space to come and just talk when they are comfortable talking. A lot of times also is because there is so much pressure. We imagine, sometimes it's true and sometimes it's imagined, that your partner could be giving you, your female partner could be giving you a lot of pressure to be something, to open up, to talk, to be there immediately. But you see, one of the differences we have as guys is women were taught how to talk from a very young age, so they grew up doing it. Men do not have that system. It's a system. It's a system of existence. It's a tool. We do not have that tool. So we take a lot of time to even know how to put our words, our pain into words, our thoughts into words, and all these things. But for me, it should not always be an excuse. Again, it really depends on context. So many things, even my answers, all of them really depend on context. If somebody has abused you, you want them to speak, that's a very different context. If you're working with somebody, you need them to communicate, you know. So the contexts are really different, but it's not supposed to be on you, a woman, to help a man talk. No, a man is supposed to teach himself how to talk. He's supposed to teach himself how to communicate. And of course, that means he has to be around a community, he has to be around society. So opening up safe spaces for us would mean, for a guy, I need to have male friends. So maybe reaching out to his male friends sometimes helps. The problem is a lot of us also have friends who are just the same as us. They also don't talk. So it's just time to dismantle all those things and say, we need to start afresh. We need to just look at life differently. And sometimes it may even mean breaking relationships, because if somebody is not willing to move forward with you, what do you do? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for touching on the issue of feminism. One thing I'd say, you need to come. Okay, that's not a question. Yeah, guys. Yeah, I think I'm done. I don't know where. Is there any other questions? Let me write my email address down here. You can reach out to me. Onyango gmail.com. I've just written my email down there. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Instagram there. My Facebook name is Onyango Otieno. Let's connect. Let's talk. I have a podcast. I'm typing in the web. www.soundcloud.com/Afro-Masculinity podcast. My podcast is around masculinity. I share very many personal stories about men in Africa as well. And they're very involving. So when you listen to the podcast, take your time on them. I space them out because they're heavy and they're about an hour each episode. I'm working on the 3rd episode right now that we are going to be speaking about the politics around the bodies of African men, how Africans men have been politicized and used as economic tools, that men even fear to spend time with their own bodies, to know themselves sexually, to know themselves mentally, and all these things. So may you give me, please. Yeah, so guys, I'm done for now. If you need me to say anything else, please let me know. Over to you, moderator. I almost said adjudicator. Thank you so much, guys.
Hi, thank you, Rex. It's been a beautiful session. I think Benjamin has something to say. Nyariki?
Yes, Gloria, thank you so much. Thank you, Rixpoet, for this amazing session that you've taken us through. We appreciate that you took your time to prepare through, and I like the approach that you gave. It takes a lot of courage to get that raw, and you started your session with personal stories, and I think you've addressed most of the questions using personal stories, and it's from those stories, which most of them are actually relatable, that we've been able to get some of the answers. Things that I picked from this session, and I'd like to echo, are like, a great mind must be androgynous. That was profound. And things like vulnerability has to start with me. So I should go for a community instead of waiting for somebody else to come. I should take the initiative rather than wait for somebody else to take such an initiative. And lastly, when care is shared, then healing is a possibility. That was also profound. So I'm here to represent the Standing Committee on Medical Education and Research, which is under the Federation of African Medical Students Association. And this has been amazing. And I look forward to more sessions like this. And to the attendees, I want to thank each and every one of you for sparing so much time out of your busy schedules and learning with us. Thank you so much, Gloria. Back to you.
Okay. Thank you, Benjamin. Innocent, 1 minute as we wind up.
Okay, thank you so much, Gloria. I'm Innocent Oduki, the chairperson for the Standing Committee on Professional Exchange, working under Federation of African Medical Student Associations, which is an umbrella for all African medics. So first, I would like to say that the session has been interactive and I really learned a lot. Then secondly, I will take this opportunity to welcome you to our upcoming webinar, which is a discussion on gender-based violence, which is scheduled on 26th June this year at 5:30 p.m. East Africa time. So we'll have Dr. Kaimeti, Frida Kaimeti, who will be leading us through the session. So kindly spare your time for this session. We have an experienced doctor who will be guiding us through. So you will learn a lot and will not be the same after the session. So you can follow me. You can get in touch with me through Frida or Benjamin or Onguka after this session, so that you can link up for the session. So thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you, Innocent. Thank you, Rix. Thank you from the team at SCOMH. We want to thank all of you for joining us. It's been a beautiful session. We look forward to having you again. Yes. Bye-bye. Yellow hugs.
Bye.
Bye-bye.